Welcome to Abergavenny Baptist Church.
Life, faith, together.
And the reading this morning is from Matthew 4, verses 1 to 11. Thanks, Becky.
Then Jesus was led by the Spirit into the desert to be tempted by the devil. After fasting for 40 days and 40 nights, he was hungry. The tempter came to him and said, "If you are the Son of God, tell these stones to become bread." Jesus answered, "It is written, man does not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of God." Then the devil took him to the holy city and had him stand on the highest point of the temple. "If you are the Son of God," he said, "throw yourself down, for it is written, he will command his angels concerning you, and they will lift you up in their hands, so that you will not strike your foot against a stone." Jesus answered him, "It is also written, do not put the Lord your God to the test." Again, the devil took him to a very high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms of the world and their splendor. "All this I will give you," he said, "if you will bow down and worship me." Jesus said to him, "Away from me, Satan, for it is written, worship the Lord your God and serve him only." Then the devil left him, and angels came and attended him.
Anyway, I bring you greetings. So it's a real joy to be with you. I had no idea you were that old. Anyway, it is Lent. The season of Lent began. We had no pancakes in our house. Our children have long gone and grown up and things like that. So you don't tend to do pancakes anymore. And my wife got back late from, in fact, childcare with our grandchild, and there were no pancakes there either. So that was all very disappointing. And we've not started well because we were intending on Wednesday to go to an Ash Wednesday service at Newport Cathedral. We live in Newport. And last year was the first time, to my shame, I'd ever been to an Ash Wednesday service. They don't tend to be things that many Baptist churches do. Some Baptists, did you do one? No, that's fine. Anyway, I know one or two do. But it was an extraordinarily moving service, this Ash Wednesday service, this sort of entering into this time of reflection and humility in a sense. And most of you will know at some point you go to the front and you have so the ashes of the palm crosses from the previous year are burned, etc., mixed with a little bit of oil so it sticks, and you put on your forehead. And the words that the priest says to you, from dust you came, and to dust you will return. Go and sin no more. I mean, it's an extraordinary moment to have that on you. From dust you came, and to dust you shall return. Therefore, go and sin no more. Remember who you are in the sight of God, the fragility of life, and this sort of path of humility that we are called to walk in the midst of just a service full of the language of beginning to journey with Jesus to the cross, the beginning of this sort of kind of 6-week-ish journey towards Easter, Good Friday, and then Easter Sunday, etc. And of course, so this reading, the temptation of Jesus, is taken from the lectionary, is the beginning of a season of Lent where we reflect on a time of fasting. I'm very bad at Lent. I gave up giving up things for. That's what I give up for Lent, giving up things for Lent. If that makes sense. I'm just not very, very good at it. Every now and again, I try and do something. Does anybody here given up something for Lent? No, I just. Okay, there's a little bit of gentle nodding from one or two people. Chocolate biscuits. I remember several years ago, a colleague of mine had given up cakes for Lent, and then we got into a tortuous discussion about whether a Jaffa cake was a biscuit or a cake, and whether you could have a Jaffa cake or not, etc. But it is entering into the experience of what it is to deny yourself for something that you take for granted and might mean something to you, and what it feels like to resist the temptation to have that bar of chocolate, to start watching the TV again, some people give up a screen now, don't they? Stop looking at screens and social media. But if you do give up something, it's surprisingly not easy, depending on what you give up. To feel that kind of, I'm going to give up what I do, and then sort of 30 days into it, you think, oh, go on. Nobody's going to mind if I have the odd chocolate button or two just to kind of stave off have a glance at the phone, whatever it might be. Jesus has been in the wilderness for 40 days. The devil has picked his moment. He hasn't done this on day 1 or day 2, early into this period of fasting. He comes to him at 40 days. This is a significant period of time. Jesus is famished, genuinely starving and hungry. Of course, Jesus has been baptized, has gone through the waters of baptism, and now has entered the wilderness for 40 days, echoing the story of Israel, having come through the waters of her deliverance out of Egypt towards the promised land. The 40 days of Jesus in the wilderness, echoing Israel's 40 years in the wilderness, where they were tested. Would they go on trusting in God? And you remember anybody remember Keith Green? This is going to age some of you. Some of you remember Keith Green, American songwriter. He wrote a song called So You Want to Go Back to Egypt? Sort of a real play on where it's warm and secure, et cetera, where you were comfortable, you knew where you were, and you knew where the meals were coming from. Okay, you were oppressed by the Egyptians, but it's significantly better than being out in the wilderness and never quite sure whether there's going to be manna the following day or not. Whether God truly is going to look after you in the wilderness when there are no obvious sources of support and sustenance. And so Jesus enters into this. Because where Israel failed to be God's righteous son, Jesus, of course, triumphs. And he lives the life that you or I and Israel itself and the church today could not live, and died the death that we could not die, so that the world might be saved, so that there truly might be a light to the nations and hope for the rest of the world. And so Jesus is here 40 days and receives these 3 temptations. If you are the Son of God, tell these stones to become bread. If you are the Son of God, and by the way, that word if is not maybe, maybe not. Well, the devil knows exactly who he is, and it could be translated since you are, because you are. So since you are the Son of God, tell these stones to become bread. Since you are the Son of God, throw yourself down, for it is written, he will command his angels concerning you, and they will lift you up in their hands so that you will not strike your foot against a stone. And all this and then the devil took him to a high mountain and showed him the kingdoms of the world. And if you will bow down and worship me, you can have all of this. All of this. You see, the first thing we need to notice about these temptations is none of them are bad things. If you will exterminate this population, if you will abuse this, whatever, if you will enter into some corrupt arrangement with, if you will murder, if you will, all the obvious things, who doesn't want to be able to turn stones into bread and not just feed themselves, but feed others? And this is a very useful thing to be able to do. Who doesn't want to do something that proves that God is the faithful one? That if I launch myself off the pinnacle of the temple, I can prove to the world that God keeps his word. That God is truly who he says he is, and the world can see. Perhaps we could gather a crowd, get some flyers out there, post something on social media, draw everyone together, launch myself from the temple, and God will see. And if only I was in control of all the nations of the earth, imagine what we could do. Imagine the transformation that we could bring if we had political control. If our prime minister was a true Christian, if our president was truly a Christian. There's an American theologian who once said that it's not impossible for a true Christian to be president of the United States. But if he is truly a follower of Jesus Christ, it is very unlikely that he will be voted in again for a second term. because they will reject him as they rejected the Son of God. You see, what's important to realize also with this is that Satan has come and whispered in his ear, as Satan came in that first story in Genesis and whispered in Eve's ear. And although he disappears now from the story, he will be present, implicitly present, if not explicitly present, in the encounters that Jesus will have as he journeys through the gospel towards the cross, in the reactions to those who are opposed to the ways of God embodied in the life of Jesus, those who resist that Messiah has come amongst them, that the one that Israel has longed for is now with dirty and dusty feet walking amongst them, and they refuse to accept and believe it. And having good scriptural warrant for doing it. It's not so much that the Romans reject Jesus for who he is and see him as a threat, it's that his own people turned against him, using scripture itself to deny his presence. Henri Nouwen, has anybody heard of Henri Nouwen? Some of you might have read his books. Henri Nouwen was a Catholic priest who, stunning intellectual, and had written a number of books, lectured at, I should have looked this up before I came, one of the big American universities. Anyway, Harvard, somewhere like that. And then he took a year out, and he went to care for Adam, who had profound difficulties, profound challenges. And Adam was an adult, and became his carer for a year. And Nouwen was used to walking into places, and everybody exalted him. Oh, he's professor of this, and he's got all of these letters after his name, and he's got all of these sort of plaudits, etc., etc. And not only did Adam not know about any of this, Adam didn't care. He just needed somebody to wipe his bottom. He just needed somebody to feed him. He just needed somebody to care for him. And it had a profound impact on Nouwen when everything that up until that point had been about his identity and who he was and what he took for granted about the notice that people took of him and why his life mattered and why his life had significance and where he got his confidence and security. When all of that was stripped away, what did it really mean for him to be beloved of God, to be a servant of the King, and to serve this extraordinary human being, Adam, who Nouwen would go on later to write effectively that Adam, where he thought he would be the one who would teach Adam about what it meant to be a Christian, he discovered that it was Adam that taught him and exposed in him what was lacking in his Christian discipleship, the temptation to be a somebody, suddenly was turned on its head. Because in these temptations, Nouwen said, we see something of that whispering voice of the devil. First of all, turn these stones into bread, to be useful, to be relevant, to be able to do something. We need to do something. We don't know what it is, but this is something, so let's do it. And the danger is, and please don't mishear me, because Jesus will go on to multiply bread and feed thousands. He's got no problem with feeding people. It's just in this moment, the temptation to do something useful is to grab the moment to deny the fact that God will watch over me. I need to take control and do something. This has gone on long enough. I have waited long enough for God to intervene. And I am hungry, and I am famished, and I can't wait any longer. And so it creeps into churches, particularly busy churches, that want to do something, that have people who are very good at doing things, doing good things, not bad things, these are good things. And I know you have a food bank, absolutely, praise God for that, and I hope that is a continual reminder to you of the injustice in the world out there, and actually the fact that any food banks exists is an abomination in the sight of God. In a wealthy nation. Food banks shouldn't make us feel better that we are doing something for the hungry. They should, although they do, and that's fine, but also a reminder that this is not okay. This is not right, and we should not be allowing the authorities off the hook because of the injustices in this world. But what you find, and where the drift goes in churches that become overly preoccupied by the doing and the things that they can do, what diminishes over time is their capacity to trust in God and to pray. And the activity comes as a cover for an increasingly thinning spirituality, both in our own lives. Some of the most busy and active people that I know in churches, not all of them, of course, but some of them are running away from being still with God because they're not quite sure that God really is going to look after them, so they have to do something about it. They feel the need to do something useful, to make themselves relevant. And they lose the capacity to pray. Nuon would say that we need to recover a prayerful waiting of God and intimacy on God. Similarly, to do something spectacular, churches increasingly need to want to put themselves on the map and do something impressive and do something that will gain attention and will get God to do something. My previous church, so I was at a church in South London, Herne Hill Baptist Church, and I love getting hold of the histories of churches and was reading through the history of Herne Hill Baptist Church. And I think it was sometime in the mid-'80s, maybe, late 80s, early 90s. The church was celebrating its 100 years. So it was founded in the late 1800s. It was celebrating its 100 years. And in the history, it records that the church decided in a church meeting that they would pray that 50 new members would join the church in the next 12 months. 50 new members would join the church. I mean, it was a good-sized church, quite a bit going on. And that another 50 members would join the church in the next 12 months. Great aspiration. Why wouldn't you do that? The history is then very honest, and it records not only did no new members join the church in the next 12 months, 2 people left. Let's do something spectacular. Let's set a big target for God to meet. Let's step out and do something spectacular. Let's fling ourselves off from something and wait to see what God's going to do. That to still ourselves in the presence of God and to genuinely discern what God is calling us to do, we will not seek to do the spectacular for spectacular's sake, even in our anxiety that we need to prove to the world something about God. When we have become convinced that it is our job to defend God in the eyes of the world, then we have lost sight of who God truly is. God is more than able to look after himself, I can tell you this now. Our calling is to be faithful. And in the 40 days of our fasting and our famine, when still nothing has yet come through, we will wait on him. And we will be patient and continue to trust in him. And the third temptation, if only you had more power, if only you could take control, if only you could have people, your people in the places of power, if only you could run the country, if only we could run the country, how much better might things be? And the temptation to collapse our spiritual and our religious life with the political life and the power that comes with that. We see it writ large in America. I stumbled across somebody on my social media this morning. You see, I've not given that up for Lent. There was an American in an anti-Trump demonstration or something. And the T-shirt said, I'm more of a Christian than a Trump supporter. I'm behaving more like a Christian than a Trump supporter. And I'm an atheist, says the T-shirt. And I'm an atheist. You see, this is what happens when somebody promises you the power to look after yourself, to watch over you, to protect you, to privilege you. and you desire that more than we have God to watch over and to look after us. There is an increasing anxiety in this country, exactly what's happening in America, the rise of the so-called Christian right. I don't know whether any of you are following this, the rise of so-called Christian nationalism. Christian nationalism, we should be wary of all political ideologies, extreme political ideologies, whether they're left or right, but there seems to be a particular trend in the political right that takes on board itself a sort of a Christian language, Christian symbolism. Basically, vote for us and we'll give you back Christian Britain. Vote for us and we'll give you back Christian Wales. But there's a corruption with it. There's an insidious nastiness to it because it comes on in political terms and something we need to be particularly wary of. Somebody showed in the 1930s at the I think it was either the European Baptist Federation or one of the big Baptist gatherings in the 1930s, gathering of Baptists, and they had a swastika flag flying in the background. These things should make us anxious and nervous. The promise of politics to give us back, if you would just vote for us, if you would just vote for me. And I'm increasingly concerned as I travel around churches, people who are buying into this and think this is the way for the church to go. This is who we need to get on board with. And to have the capacity and the ability to trust in God as God's people and in God's faithfulness to step away from these things, we will not. We will trust and we will trust in God alone. You see, the way of Jesus will be outlined in the Gospel of Matthew. We will see the extraordinary life that we are called to live in the Sermon on the Mount, which begins, just let me read these to you. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is, who knows it? Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, if that's one thing we need in this day and age. But they don't deserve mercy. Well, it wouldn't be mercy if they deserved it. That's the scandal of mercy. Blessed are the merciful, for they too will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be the children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Because shortly after this congregation was founded in 1652, John Miles, who was the instrumental in the first congregation in Ilston and then Abergavenny, Llanwelyn and others. The following year he fled to America because of the rising persecution and the rest that was rising up against the Baptists in this land, and he fled to Massachusetts and started a Baptist church there. But those who began this congregation held fast, and in their faithful pattern of life and absorbing the truths of Scripture, because they knew that Jesus could feed 5,000 and he would feed them. They knew that if they waited on him, the one who would one day go to the holy city and from a high place would look over the nations of the earth, nailed to a cross for our salvation. And so all authority in heaven and on earth now has been given to me. This journey we are called to live takes us to the cross and through the cross into resurrection and new life. And Lent is a time that reminds us that are we going to bail at any point? Or are we prepared with Jesus to go all the way to the cross? Yes, I too will be prepared to be crucified for this Jesus, for this life, for this way that I am called to be. This is the extraordinary calling of the people of God in the ordinariness of the extraordinary lives that you and I are called to live. So God manifests himself in this world. And salvation has been entrusted to us. And we are indeed the hope of the world. So let me finish with these words from Isaiah. The people walking in darkness have seen a great light. On those living in the land of deep darkness, a light has dawned. For to us a child is born, and to us a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders, and he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Of the increase of his government and peace there will be no end, and he will reign on David's throne and over his kingdom, establishing and upholding it with justice and righteousness from that time on and forever. And the zeal of the Lord Almighty will accomplish this. Do not trust the voices that whisper in your ears that there is another way to this. Only in Jesus, only in his life, death, and resurrection, only through the cross, only in our daily obedience in following him will we find life and life eternal. So go on trusting him each morning, each day. I choose to follow you. I wait on you, and I continue to wait on you, because you will never leave us, you will never forsake us, and I will be with you, says Jesus, to the very end of the age. May God bless you and keep you in all of his purposes. Amen.
Thank you for watching.
For more information, please visit our website, abergavenybaptist.co.uk.